Welcome to the Great British Crochet Off technical version, where I chat through the technical aspects of this week's episode of the Great British Crochet Off. And this week was Chocolate Week, and I tried to create a cardigan that gives you the feelings that the items from Chocolate Week give you. So like cuddly, cozy, warm. They had to make like mousses and chocolate tarts and very like soft, malleable chocolate items. So this cardigan was inspired by that. Now let's go back in time and see how we got here. Welcome back for Chocolate Week, and for Chocolate Week I was kind of inspired a little bit more loosely to the brief. I was inspired by, number one, just like chocolate itself and just like the coziness of it. Like chocolate's one of those things that's really described with so many like cozy, comforting words. And I was kind of described by just like the feeling that gives people chocolate, and I was thinking like cozy, I was thinking wearable, I was thinking cardigan. And the bakers had to do a lot of like softer chocolate applications. So while there's a lot of baking involved, they had to make mousses, they had to make ganaches, they had to make a fondue. So like all very like liquidy, chocolatey kind of things. So I wanted to do, so I was thinking hot chocolate. So I picked out some yarns that are in like a hot chocolate color palette. This is Tom Daly's Cotton Made with Love yarn from Lion Brand. I got a bunch of these in what I thought was kind of a hot chocolate color palette. This one's actually called Hot Cocoa. I didn't even realize this until after I had picked out the color. So I'm going to be doing a cardigan, like a big kind of drapey cardigan with like big bell sleeves in the moss stitch. If I can find my sample here. Here's my little swatch to make sure I liked all this together and I like the colors together. I absolutely do. If you're interested in a tutorial for this stitch, I already have one on my page. It's part of my Crochet 101 series, so you can just check that out there. Gorgeous, gorgeous stitch. I'm using a 5mm yarn to do this because I wanted like a larger, I'm not sure if you can tell, like I wanted a more open weave to this cardigan. I live in a very hot climate, so a more open weave cardigan will be worn more by me. And then I'm also playing around. I've always wanted to do knit ribbing with a crocheted cardigan. Usually I do crocheted ribbing with my cardigans, but I actually like knitting ribbing more than I like crocheting ribbing, and I've always wanted to try this technique out. So you knit your ribbing and then you kind of work your crochet into that top row of the knitting, and you can work on from there. If you would, I have tutorials on how to do crocheted ribbing. If you don't want to touch knitting needles, if you don't knit, that's cool. I have tutorials on it. That will work just fine. You can check those out. I have playlists of all kinds of tutorials. If you're interested in tutorial for knit ribbing, I don't really do knit tutorials. I guess if someone really begged me to, I would, but I'm just doing 1x1 knit ribbing. So I've spent this evening figuring out my like stitch total, so like how many stitches I have to do to get my ribbing for my wrists, my ribbing for the back part of my cardigan, and the two front parts of my cardigan. So I spent my evening doing that. So now I'm going to work on getting all this down. Once I have all my ribbing done, I'll kind of talk about the stitch amounts that I have. But that's what I'm going to work on. I'm going to spend the rest of this evening trying to get as much ribbing as I can done. So I'm going to come back when I've done that. It is the next day. I finally finished knitting all my ribbing, so I'm going to quickly chat through the math for what my cardigan's going to be. Obviously, you can adjust this with your size and preferences. So for the wrists, this is a size 4mm knitting needle, and I did 6.5 inches, which ended up being 40 stitches that I cast on. And I did 2 of those with 8 rows, so that's 8 rows wide. And then these are my 2 front panel ones. These are 60 knit stitches, and then 10 rows because I wanted the bottom to be just a little bit more wide than the wrists. And then this is for the very back piece, and I did 110 stitches for this, again 4mm needles. Now I'm going to start working my moss stitch up. I was thinking about using a 5mm hook, but I'm actually going to try doing a 6mm because I think I want that weave to just be even a little bit more open and loose for the vision that I have in my head. So I'm going to start with the back panel, and it's literally, I'll check back in when I've worked it up. This is going to be a very basic structure cardigan, quite frankly, because I only have a few days to attempt to put it together. So next check-in will be after I've started the back panel. So I'm at the evening of the next day, and I finished the back of my cardigan, and let's chat through a couple of things. So I ended up, I spent a lot of time playing around with how many stitches to put into my ribbing, and all you literally do is anything's a chain if you believe in yourself. And I literally just like forced, and I could show this if anyone's interested. I literally just forced my hook into this top row, my cast off row of my stitches, and I turned this into my chain, and that's what I put my chain into, or my stitches into, to start actually working my crochet on my knit ribbing. So this ended up being 110 stitches. I played around with doing increases, but it was just so, I mean, you could see how big it is right now. It was just so big. And I worked it up, I don't know how many rows, but I can measure the height of this. And I finished my back panel, and I'm truly just doing a block cardigan. There were no increases or decreases. You'll see the form of it after I'm done. And now I'm starting on my front panel. I put 54 stitches into this one, and I'll put all the numbers on the screen so you can keep track of them. And so I need to make 2 of these. I'm going to make them exactly the same. No increases, no decreases, just straight up like panels. And I am trying to match my pattern of colors. I think it's going to give it a much more cohesive, clean look. So after I finish a row, I check and see what I did last, and I think it's going to give it a much more clean look. So I'm going to make my 2 front panels in exactly the same way, just working it up straight until I have the exact same height, and then I'm going to sew those together to make myself like a pseudo vest, and then I'm going to get to the sleeves. I like the idea of kind of the block style. I don't really have anything exactly in this style, so I know I'll wear it a lot. And also, if I want me to crochet a cardigan in less than a week, this is the style it has to be. So I have all but one piece is made. I just want to take a second to chat about the structure a little bit also. So for the sleeves, these ended up being, I think it's 62 stitches, but I'll put it up here. I put in an extra couple of stitches into some of the spots because I wanted the sleeve to kind of push out. I don't like sleeves that are too tight on my arms, so I am designing that for me. But this is basically the structure of a cardigan like this. You have your back panel, you have your 2 like straight up and down panels. So it's going to be sewn together kind of like this. And obviously my shoulder line is actually here. So it's kind of like a drop shoulder design. Super basic, but really cozy, comfy. It'll be, I promise you, it's going to be so cute when it comes together. I am genuinely so excited for when the weather's appropriate to wear this. So what I'm going to do is I have one last sleeve to make, which shouldn't take me too long. I kind of just did this between last night and today. And then I need to do all the sewing together. I also need to weave in all these ends. There's no way I weave in all these ends before I want to film and post this, because I like to obviously film and post before the next Bake Off episode comes. There's just no way. There's no way that happens. So you'll probably see some of these ends hanging off. And if anyone wants to see it without the ends woven in, I'm happy to post like a secondary video. But I'm going to make the other sleeve and then get to some construction bit. Oh, and also, obviously after the ends are woven in, there will be some trimming here. Last, because I don't know if I mentioned this and I want to remind myself to make this note, I ended up using a 5.75 hook for the actual body of the cardigan. 6 was actually my ideal. I couldn't find my 6mm hook. So if you have a 6, use that. Otherwise, I wanted an open weave, so 5.75. So all the pieces are done. I'm now at the point of assembly. And if you've never assembled something you've made bespoke for yourself, here's how I'm doing it. So I'm starting on each side. This side is already finished. So the first thing I did was I laid, and I have it done over here, I laid my sleeve out so I knew how wide I needed to make the whole of my sleeve. And then I sewed up here until this point. So I knew that this had to be left open for the sleeve. And then specifically because I'm doing a really block cardigan style, I worked this seam next inward so I could start it, put it on, and then decide how much if I wanted to go, like how much of a neckline I wanted to leave for myself. So then I put it on, I saw how much neckline I wanted to leave for myself, finished sewing this up, wove this in. I have so many ends to weave in. And then I put the sleeve on, and now I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. But at least this time I know how high up here I need to go and how far in here I need to go. So I'm going to do all of that, and then I need to weave the ends in here so I can put the trim on. It's all finished. Well, not all finished, because as you'll see in basically all my videos, I'm being very open and honest that I'm revealing this project with tons of ends to weave in. But that's sometimes what happens when you try and make a cardigan in less than a week.
But I'll post it when all the ends are actually woven in. And if I decide to put pockets or not, I'll decide that by the time I'm done weaving in the end. So I'll have that update too. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope we make something similar. It's honestly the cuddliest, coziest thing I've ever made for myself. And I've made myself a lot of cuddly and cozy things.